Like every other episode, we've got a lot to cover, but we'll start out with slowing things down.
I want to take a moment to cover the information from the owner of an operating railroad.
We take a look at pick and couplers.
Turn on our lights. We'll go from dim to bright to then turn on our beacon and ground light.
We glance at light settings, as well as take a look at programming that is less slot car light.
So leave a comment down below if you're able to help us out.
And we close with a highlight of more realistic paced operation. We also check out what the curmudgeon's gripe of the week is this week. Only in this episode of SOO The Milwaukee Road.
Have you ever said to yourself,
I wish my locomotive was a little bit more realistic in operations, and not the slot car style that so often are just factory out of the box?
You know, I don't think I have.
well, today we're going to take a look at upping your game as far as a little bit more prototypical movements with your locomotives.
We'll dive into the details of how you can get here at the end of this video. The Archetypal Ops, attempting to emulate the prototype.
Alright, if you want to take model railroading to the next level and enjoy the experience by taking a 4-ounce freight car and turn it into a few thousand pounds, we'll give you a look at how that's done and kind of how it reacts. Simply by grabbing a locomotive, you can grab any throttle. In this case, we've got the proto throttle. We're going to turn on 437. We'll check our horn, our bell, turn on our lights. We'll go from dim to bright to then turn on our beacon and ground light under the auxiliary lights. We'll throw our direction and we're going to throttle up. Notice that the locomotive is not moved. It's definitely loading up and it's getting ready to pull this heavy cut of cars. And it's heavy, so we might as well notch up. Oh, come on, go full on John and go notch 8.
Get the hell out of that guy!
Throw our direction. Shoving into the cut of cars, and again it's a heavy cut, so we'll notch up. Now this experience isn't only had through the proto throttle. Obviously the moving the levers and the adjustments and the light switches and all that, that comes with the proto throttle. But if you want to have the same experience as far as the audio is concerned on your locomotives, I'm going to switch over to the NCE power cab.
After being acquired from the Milwaukee Road in 1985, the MP15ACs roamed the line for several years in a drab rebranding scheme. Basically, a large patch of black paint covered the orange panel where Milwaukee Road was spelled out. Renumbered with SOO line and the new number on the side of the cab, they were quite unattractive. Do you know what the former Milwaukee Road patched out scheme was nicknamed? Was it A, Outcasts, B, Rebels, C, Mules, or D, Bandits? We'll find out later in this episode.
So we've got the NCE power cab. We're going to log into 437. Having done so, the audio is going to drop out, and we're going to just turn it back on here in a moment. We can check our horn, our bell. Everything's up and running. So we're going to throttle up here. This is a 28 step, so we're going to just basically go up to 14, which is kind of like notch 4. Notice you're getting the same effect that you would at the proto throttle, shoving into this cut of cars. I'm going to slow down here, down to 1 to idle. I'm going to brake here. Hit my direction, and we'll throttle on out. It's a heavy cut. We'll give her a coast. And we'll bring her to a stop here. And there you have it. You want to enhance your experience by taking your 4-ounce freight car and turning it into a few thousand pounds? A few adjustments of the CVs in the Locomotive can do that for you. You don't have to have a proto throttle. You can do it with your power cab. You can do it with your Digitrack system. Any of those type of things that you've got going on, if you want to see this type of operation, we can go on and make a few adjustments to make it happen.
And we'll take a look at those adjustments later in this episode.
Prepping for ops.
How long is this dramatic preparation for operations?
Well, this segment's 2 minutes.
I want to take a moment to cover the information from the owner of an operating railroad, and I'm not saying these are fast and hard rules that you have to abide by. They're merely kind of guidelines or suggestions to think about when you're going over to somebody else's railroad to run trains. First and foremost is a lot of times we show up and we say,
Well, just grab a throttle, put her in notch 8, and let's have some fun.
now I realize that they might have a monologue or something that they want to at least share with you before an operating session starts.
A key point there is probably listen.
So often we can show up and the guy just goes,
Well, this is my railroad, yada, yada, yada. Let's go have some fun and run trains.
and you said,
Well, you yada 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 over the best part.
No, I mentioned running some trains.
but when it is all said and done, it's important to be able to have this conversation and listen to what the owner might want. Just as an example, on the Hiawatha Elevated District, as far as uncoupling cars, I've put magnets in spots where I think that the cars should be spotted at. Now I realize you might have to use a pick to be able to uncouple cars. A fellow modeler pointed out to us some time ago, and I use this technique all the time, is he doesn't like where you go straight down between the couplers.
Is that so unforgivable? Is that like breaking a commandment? Did God say to Moses, thou shalt not pick?
I guarantee you Moses was a picker.
I know when you go to his railroad, I try to always just use the actual KD coupler hose and pull them open to be able to uncouple a car. His reasoning is a lot of times guys don't see the actual joint where they're supposed to drop the pick, and they'll hit a coupler spring, knock it off, and now he's got maintenance to do. That's understandable, and you got to respect that. So when it is all said and done, listening to some of the information that an operator or an owner may have to be able to share with you is definitely worth listening to.
Because if you tune them out,
Well,
They might tune you out and not invite you back.
so have fun with it, enjoy it, because when all is said and done, that's what it's all about. Enjoying the hobby, get out there, find an opportunity to operate a railroad, and have fun with it.
The Archetypal Ops.
All right, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of the decoder of number 437. There's nothing fancy going on here. This is that MP15AC Milwaukee Road unit that we saw running. This is the Lok programmer. I'm not using the JMRI Decoder Pro because I can't get a LokSound version 5 decoder to be able to load within JMRI.
so if you know how to do it and you can get it to function, please give us the secret of the tip how, because I can't load it on my dad's or on mine.
So leave a comment down below if you're able to help us out.
But moving forward, I don't change anything as far as
The analog settings, brake settings, compatibility, DCC, or driving characteristics, I don't change any of those.
I do make adjustments in the function mapping, and this is just for the proto throttle where my front light is on F0. F4 is the front light with the beacon and ground light. F7 is the rear light. F9 is the rear light with the beacon and ground light, and then F10 and 11 are both the dim lights for the front and rear light respectively. So that's what I've done as far as the mapping is concerned, because within the Proto Throttle, you can map these to the switches so you can get them to see they'll function the way you saw in the video.
Boring! No! The battery!
Function outputs, I don't change anything here as far as the settings are concerned, other than I do dim the beacon, and I also dim the ground light down to 10. So out of a value of 31, I bring them both down to 10.
Because it's a little less intense.
As far as the function settings, I don't change anything here. The identification, I don't change anything, but within the manual CVs, I'm going to let you see the back end of these, and this is what you guys that are just programming CVs can look at. Other guys might be using the speed table and so forth when we move down in just a moment.
Oh, here's a 10-second tip.
Everybody needs to get their bits together. Simple storage, quick access. If you have a couple you need to change, come grab it, take care of the situation.
Instead of scrambling around trying to find things.
But looking at this is your minimum start voltage, this is your max voltage, this is acceleration, and this is deceleration. So looking at the values on these, I've set it to 230. Some guys start out at about 125 maybe on the acceleration because you can pick up speed faster. And they may even set this up to like 255 because you have the braking function, whether you have a button to hit brake or use the brake lever on the Proto Throttle. So that's the settings for 2 through 5 on the CVs. We're going to slide down to CV66 and also talk about CV95. This is your forward trim and 95 is your reverse trim. You'll want both of these numbers close, at least in numbers. This is set to 12. Normally it's like 128. I end up setting it to 12 to bring down my overall max speed. My max speed is roughly about 14 miles an hour, so this is where that happens. Moving on to the CVs themselves, between 67 and 93, this is your speed curve. So for guys that are working on the speed curve, you're just going to work on the first few slots, and I've set mine to
33, 65, 97, 129, 161, 193, and then it goes 255 from there on out.
So it's basically flatlined after CV74, and that's the case all the way down to the bottom here. So 255 all the way up to the very top end of the speed table. And there's my reverse trim set to 12. Last thing we want to adjust is CV179. We've got it set to 128. Some guys have it set to 100. Some have it 125. You're just going to want to see how much you're getting out of your braking and make that adjustment here.
So if you're not braking enough, you make the adjustment. If you're braking too much, then you're going to make the adjustment as well.
That's what you've got as far as CV adjustments. This is the back end look of locomotive number 437, the Milwaukee Road MP15AC. So hopefully you enjoy a little bit more prototypical operations and you guys can set up your locomotives to be able to sound a little bit more like the real thing. Did you venture a guess or know the answer to this easy quiz question was D, bandits?
Nailed it.
A former railroad employee said we were told to go get the cheapest black paint and put it over the Milwaukee Road.
Just cover it up.
You can tell the paint is cheap, it just wore off.
As 437 starts up, we're going to close out with a special thanks to Joe Atkinson and Tom Klomoski for sharing the CV settings that we use today, as well as the prototypical operations that are inspiring a lot of us to get into a little bit more prototypical operations.
Now, these are not the answer, the only way you can possibly get a locomotive to move accordingly.
But it's a start. So hopefully you get the opportunity to check some of these settings out, try them on your locomotives.
The worst you can do is go back in and just hit reset.
Here's the curmudgeon coming at you for the Gripe of the Week. The Gripe of the Week this week is about your attitude. Your good enough attitude. It's not just good enough. You want to make sure that your track work is really good, because that's key. If you got guys coming in from out of state or from a long ways away and they're going to run your railroad, and you put down, it's just good enough track work, well, they ain't going to be happy. I'm just telling you right now, it's always derailing, and that's not good enough. You want to have a good experience, so clean up your attitude and make sure you get that track work bulletproof. And that's the curmudgeon's gripe of the week. Well, they ain't gonna be happy. I'm just telling you right now.
A big thanks to everybody that watches to the end, that has hit like, hit subscribe, as well as made comments in the past. It's those actions that help share this content, so if you haven't checked out other episodes, feel free to do so. You can also check out the tour of the GN in 1970, as well as the past episodes of the GN in 1970.
70s.
Well, they ain't gonna be happy. I'm just telling you right now.